My name is Vex9, and I used to think I was smart. Really smart, actually. Top analyst in the Korathi Military Intelligence Division, 3 commendations for strategic assessment, and a track record that made other species nervous when they saw my reports. But humans? Oh, humans taught me that intelligence without wisdom is just elaborate stupidity with better documentation. The conference room aboard the flagship Dominion's Edge buzzed with the kind of arrogant energy that only comes from a species that has conquered 47 star systems without breaking a sweat. The holographic display showed a blue-green planet orbiting a yellow star, rotating slowly like a prize waiting to be claimed. Earth, they called it. Home to approximately 8 billion creatures that our preliminary scans had classified as emotionally unstable bipeds with concerning attachment to liquid dihydrogen monoxide. Commander Threx, all 7 feet of his gray-scaled magnificence, stood at the head of the table with his 4 arms crossed in what we considered the universal pose of, I'm about to say something incredibly stupid, but my rank means you have to pretend it's brilliant. Gentlemen, Threx began, his voice carrying that particular tone that suggested he'd already made up his mind and this meeting was just theater. Our scouts have completed their assessment of the human species. The results are, well, let's just say I'm wondering if we should classify this as a military operation or a cleanup mission. Captain Zorn, our head of xenobiology, activated his data pad with a flourish that would have been impressive if what came next wasn't so embarrassingly wrong. The humans exhibit extreme emotional volatility. He announced, as if he'd discovered something profound instead of completely missing the point. They cry during entertainment broadcasts. They form irrational attachments to small furry creatures, and get this, what? They actually change their military strategies based on how they feel about the enemy. The room erupted in what passed for laughter among the Korathi, a series of clicking sounds that made us sound like a convention of oversized insects. Looking back, that comparison was more apt than I realized at the time. They make decisions with their hearts instead of their minds, added General Crix, shaking his massive head in disbelief. Their historical records show countless examples of illogical behavior driven by emotions like love, anger, grief, and something they call hope. Can you imagine? Hope, as if wishing for something hard enough could change tactical reality. But I should have spoken up then. Should have pointed out that any species capable of splitting atoms, reaching other planets, and creating global communication networks probably wasn't as stupid as we were assuming. But I didn't, because I was too busy basking in my own superiority to recognize what was right in front of me. Their negotiation tactics are particularly pathetic, Commander Threx continued, pulling up footage from our scouts' observations. When faced with superior force, they actually try to talk their way out of conflicts. They offer compromises, seek common ground, and express concern for minimal casualties on both sides. It's almost adorable in its naivety. The video showed human diplomats at various interspecies meetings, earnestly discussing trade agreements and peace treaties with other alien races. They smiled, they listened, they even admitted when they were wrong about things. To us, watching from our position of absolute certainty, it looked like weakness. Look at this, Threx zoomed in on a human female speaking to a delegation of Zirian traders. She's actually apologizing for a misunderstanding that wasn't even her fault. And here. He switched to another clip. This human male is asking about the well-being of his negotiation partner's family before they discuss business. What kind of warrior wastes time on personal connections when there are resources to be claimed? Captain Zorn nodded sagely, as if he'd unlocked some great mystery of the universe. They prioritize emotional satisfaction over tactical advantage. Their military history is full of decisions that make no logical sense. They will sacrifice strategic positions to save individual soldiers. They will share resources with defeated enemies. They even have something called war crimes that they refuse to commit, even when it would give them significant advantages. War crimes, General Crix repeated the words like they tasted bad. Imagine being so soft that you create rules about how to fight wars. As if there's a proper way to destroy your enemies. The holographic display shifted to show human military engagements, soldiers carrying wounded comrades instead of abandoning them, commanders calling off attacks to avoid civilian casualties, medical personnel treating enemy wounded alongside their own forces. Not to the Korathi leadership, it looked like systematic weakness. Their emotional attachments make them predictable. I finally contributed, pulling up my own analysis. They have something called families, small units of humans who share genetic material and form intense emotional bonds. They will compromise entire military operations to protect these family units. Their soldiers fight less effectively when separated from their home planets for extended periods. They even send messages to their families during combat operations, broadcasting their positions and emotional states for anyone to intercept. Threx's eyes lit up with predatory interest. Exploitable weaknesses. Absolutely, I confirmed, feeling very pleased with my thorough analysis. Target their families, and you control their behavior. Threaten their emotional bonds, and they will surrender rather than fight. Their entire civilization is built on these irrational connections that can be severed or manipulated with minimal effort. General Crix leaned forward, his massive frame casting shadows across the table. How long for complete subjugation? Conservative estimate? Threx consulted his tactical display. 72 hours from initial contact to total surrender. They will probably try to negotiate first, which will give us time to position our forces optimally. When they realize negotiation won't work, they will likely attempt some kind of emotional appeal. They might even cry. The clicking laughter filled the room again. The idea of enemy soldiers crying during combat struck us as the height of absurdity. "What about their technology?" asked Captain Zorn. "Some of their achievements are noteworthy. Primitive." Threx dismissed the concern with a wave of his upper arms. "They have barely begun to explore their own star system. Their weapons are chemical-based projectiles and crude energy beams. Their ships can't even travel faster than light without using predictable jump points. And their computers." He paused for dramatic effect. "Their computers are less sophisticated than our standard-issue personal devices." I nodded in agreement, adding my own damning assessment. Their technological development follows emotional rather than logical patterns. They spend enormous resources on entertainment systems, communication networks, and artistic endeavors. A rational species would focus entirely on military and survival technologies. They waste time and energy on things like music, literature, and visual arts, Captain Zorn added with disgust. They even have humans whose entire purpose is to create things that serve no practical function except to make other humans feel emotions. "Sounds like a species ripe for conquest," concluded General Crix. "When do we begin?" Commander Threx stood to his full imposing height, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of absolute confidence. "We depart for human space in 6 hours. I want this to be clean, efficient, and quick. No unnecessary destruction. We will need their infrastructure intact for processing their resources. And remember, when they try to negotiate, when they start talking about feelings and common ground and peaceful solutions," his voice dropped to what he probably thought was an intimidating whisper, "just smile and nod. Let them exhaust themselves with emotional appeals while we position ourselves for the final strike." As the meeting dispersed, I felt that warm glow of professional satisfaction that comes from a job well done. We'd identified the enemy's weakness, developed a comprehensive strategy, and planned for every possible contingency. The humans' emotional nature would be their downfall, and our logical, rational approach would triumph as it always did. Walking back to my quarters, I passed the communications array where our propaganda specialists were already preparing broadcasts for human consumption. Simple, direct messages about our superior technology and inevitable victory. We figured the humans would panic, their emotions would overwhelm their judgment, and they'd surrender before anyone had to get hurt. Looking back, I realized that was probably the last moment in my life when I felt genuinely confident about anything. The human space station designated Aurora 7 appeared on our tactical display like a metallic flower blooming in the void. It wasn't particularly impressive by Korathi standards, roughly the size of one of our smaller mining platforms, with what appeared to be civilian-grade shielding and minimal defensive capabilities. Our fleet of 15 warships surrounded it in perfect formation, was a demonstration of overwhelming force that should have sent any rational species scrambling for surrender protocols. "Open a channel," Commander Threx ordered, settling into his command chair with the casual confidence of someone who'd done this 47 times before. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the interior of what was obviously the station's command center. And there, looking directly at us with calm brown eyes and an expression of polite attention, was our first human. Captain Maya Torres, according to the identification tag visible on her uniform. She appeared to be female, middle-aged by human standards, but with graying hair pulled back in a practical style and the kind of face that suggested she'd seen enough of the universe to not be easily surprised by it. What struck me immediately was her posture, relaxed but alert. "Ready, but not afraid." "Greetings," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the communication system. "I'm Captain Torres of Aurora Station. We have been monitoring your approach and would welcome the opportunity to establish diplomatic contact with your species. Would you be interested in opening formal communications?" The silence in our command center was profound. 47 conquests, and this was the first time anyone had offered to talk before shooting. Commander Threx recovered first, his mandibles clicking in what I recognized as suppressed amusement. "I am Commander Threx of the Korathi Empire. You are now in occupied territory. Surrender your station immediately, and your people will be processed according to our standard protocols." Captain Torres tilted her head slightly as if she were genuinely curious rather than terrified. "I appreciate the introduction, Commander. However, I'm afraid there seems to be some misunderstanding. This system is under the protection of the Human Colonial Defense Force, and Aurora 7 is a civilian research facility. We are currently conducting agricultural experiments that could benefit multiple species. Perhaps we could discuss this over some coffee? I understand first contact can be stressful for everyone involved." Coffee? She was offering us coffee? While surrounded by a battle fleet? General Crix leaned over to whisper, "Is this some kind of primitive surrender ritual?" "It must be," Threx replied, though he looked puzzled. "Please continue with standard intimidation protocols." "Captain Torres," Threx's voice took on the menacing tone that had terrified species across 3-star sectors. "You seem to misunderstand your situation. We have 15 warships. You have a research station. Our weapons could reduce your facility to component atoms in approximately 30 seconds. Logic dictates immediate surrender." Maya Torres nodded thoughtfully, as if he'd made a reasonable point worth considering. "That's certainly true, Commander. Your ships are quite impressive, and I have no doubt about their capabilities. However, I'm curious about something. In your 47 previous conquests, how many of those species invited you to sit down and discuss mutual benefits before things escalated?" The fact that she knew about our previous conquest should have been our first warning. The fact that she didn't seem particularly concerned about it should have been our second. But we were still operating under the assumption that we were dealing with primitive emotional creatures who couldn't think strategically. "None," Threx answered proudly, "because rational species recognize superior force when they see it." "Interesting," Torres replied, making a note on what appeared to be a physical piece of paper. Physical paper. As if she were some kind of primitive scribe. "And how many of those 47 conquests involved species that had already established diplomatic relationships with other spacefaring civilizations?" "That's irrelevant," Threx snapped, though I noticed his mandibles had stopped clicking. "You will surrender, or we will take your station by force." "Of course," Torres agreed amiably. "No, that's certainly an option. But before we explore more kinetic solutions, I'm wondering if you have had a chance to review our recent cultural exchange broadcasts. We have been sharing human music, literature, and philosophy with anyone interested. Quite a few species have found our emotional perspectives enlightening." She touched something on her console, and suddenly our communication channel was filled with the sound of human music. Not the harsh, militaristic compositions we might have expected, but something soft and complex, with multiple harmonies weaving together in patterns that seem to bypass rational thought and speak directly to something deeper. "Turn that off," Threx ordered, but his voice had lost some of its commanding edge. "Certainly," Torres complied immediately. "I apologize if that was intrusive. It's just that we have found music often helps establish common ground between species. There's something about shared appreciation for beauty that transcends cultural differences. Don't you think?" "Des." "We are not here to discuss art," General Crix interjected, his massive form leaning into view of the camera. "We are here to claim territory and resources. Your emotional attachments to aesthetic experiences are irrelevant." Torres looked at Crix with what appeared to be genuine interest. "General, if I may ask, what do you do when you are not engaged in military operations? How do your people find meaning in their daily lives?" The question seemed to catch Crix off guard. In Korathi society, military service was the highest calling, but even warriors had personal lives, interests, relationships that mattered to them. "That's not relevant to this situation," he replied, but his tone was less certain than it had been. "I understand," Torres said gently. "It's just that we have learned so much from other species about how they find fulfillment, create beauty, form connections with each other. The Zentorian philosophy of circular time, the Vrex poetry cycles, the Altarian meditation practices. Each species brings something unique to the cosmic conversation." She was doing it again, I realized. Taking what should have been a simple military intimidation and turning it into something else entirely. Something that made our overwhelming firepower seem somehow irrelevant. "Irrelevant? Enough," Threx declared, rising from his command chair. "Captain Torres, you have exactly 60 seconds to begin evacuation procedures, or we will demonstrate the consequences of defying the Korathi Empire." Torres nodded seriously, her expression shifting to something more formal. "I understand, Commander. And I want you to know that I respect your position and the difficult decisions you have to make. Before I authorize evacuation procedures, however, I need to inform you that Aurora Station is currently hosting delegates from 17 different species, including some that have formal defense agreements with humanity. The temperature in our command center seemed to drop several degrees. Additionally," Torres continued in the same calm voice, "our communications array has been broadcasting this entire conversation to human diplomatic networks across 4-star systems. Your conduct here today will be part of the official record, and will influence how humanity interacts with the Korathi Empire in the future." "Are you threatening us?" Threx demanded. "What? Not at all," Torres replied with what appeared to be genuine sincerity. "I'm simply providing you with all the information you need to make an informed decision. That's what diplomats do. We try to ensure that everyone understands the full scope of any situation before actions are taken that can't be undone." She paused, then added quietly, "Commander, I have children. 2 daughters, actually. They are both attending university on Earth, studying xenobiology and interspecies communication. They have written papers about the beauty of Korathi architectural achievements and the elegance of your social hierarchy systems. They admire your species greatly." For a moment, the only sound in our command center was the quiet hum of ship systems. "When I make my report about this encounter," Torres continued, "I'd like to be able to tell them that their admiration was justified, that the Korathi are as noble and honorable as their reputations suggest. It was masterful, really." In the space of a few sentences, she'd made the situation personal, appealed to our pride, and reminded us that there would be consequences for our actions that extended far beyond this single encounter. She'd taken what we thought was a simple military operation and revealed it to be a complex web of relationships, reputation, and future possibilities. Commander Threx looked around the command center, his confidence clearly shaken. This wasn't how conquests were supposed to go. Where was the fear? Where was the irrational panic? Where were the emotional outbursts that would give us clear justification for overwhelming force? We will consider your words, he said finally, and I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. But make no mistake, Captain Torres. The Korathi Empire will not be swayed by sentiment or emotional manipulation. Torres smiled, and for the first time since the conversation began, it looked entirely genuine. Of course not, Commander. I would never presume to manipulate anyone. I'm simply a human doing what humans do best. And what's that? Threx asked, though I don't think he really wanted to know the answer. We care, Torres said simply. We care about consequences, we care about relationships, we care about the future we are creating together. We care about you, Commander Threx, and about your crew, and about how this moment will ripple out into all the moments that come after it. The communication channel closed, leaving us staring at an empty screen and trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. Sir? General Crix's voice was uncertain. Orders? Commander Threx was quiet for a long time, staring at the space where Torres' face had been. Finally, he turned to me. Analyst Vex 9, he said slowly. In your assessment of human psychology, did you account for this, whatever this was? I looked at my notes, my careful analysis of human emotional weaknesses, my confident predictions of their behavior under pressure. Everything I'd written suddenly seemed not just wrong, but embarrassingly naive. No, sir, I admitted. I did not. The first sign that we had catastrophically misunderstood the situation came 18 hours later, when Ensign Corax received a personal message, and not a military communication, not a diplomatic transmission. A personal message addressed specifically to him, transmitted through channels we didn't even know humans had access to. Sir, Corax approached Commander Threx with the kind of hesitation usually reserved for delivering news about imminent reactor core breaches. I have received a communication from the humans. It's unusual. Unusual how? Threx demanded, still irritated from his encounter with Captain Torres. It's addressed to me personally, by name, and it mentions my family. The command center went dead silent. In 47 previous conquests, enemy communications had always been directed at command staff, military frequencies, official channels. No one sent personal messages to individual crew members. It wasn't done. Put it on the main screen, Threx ordered. The message appeared in perfect Korathi script, obviously translated but maintaining the linguistic patterns that indicated respect and formality. It read, to Ensign Corax 7 of the Korathi vessel Dominion's Edge. Greetings. My name is Dr. Elena Vasquez, and I'm a xenocultural researcher at Aurora Station. I hope this message finds you well and that your service aboard your ship has been fulfilling. I understand you may be far from home, which can be challenging for anyone, regardless of species. I wanted to reach out because our cultural database indicates that today is the anniversary of your joining ceremony with your mate, Trix 4. I hope you don't mind the intrusion, but I wanted to extend congratulations on this important milestone. Relationships that span the vastness of space require tremendous strength and commitment from both partners. I hope you are able to find a way to honor this special day, even while serving your empire with such dedication. If there's anything our station can do to help you send a message to Trix 4, please don't hesitate to ask. We believe that love transcends species boundaries, and we'd be honored to help facilitate such an important connection. With respect and warm wishes, Dr. Elena Vasquez. The silence that followed was profound and uncomfortable. Corax stood frozen, his gray skin shifting to darker shades that indicated deep emotional distress. How, Threx asked slowly, do they know about your joining ceremony? I don't know, sir, Corax replied, his voice barely above a whisper. I never mentioned Trix 4 in any official communications. I have never transmitted personal information through ship channels. How could they possibly? And how, General Crix added, his voice carrying a dangerous edge, do they know your personal designation number? That information is classified at the highest levels. More messages began arriving. Not all at once, but in a steady stream that grew increasingly personal and increasingly impossible to explain. Gunner Prex, too, received a detailed analysis of his home planet's agricultural situation, along with genuine concern about whether his family's farm had survived the recent drought. Navigator Quinn 8 was sent technical specifications for a new star mapping system, but with a note that it had been developed specifically to help families stay in contact across interstellar distances. Chief Engineer Brack 5 received architectural plans for a memorial garden dedicated to his brother who had died in an industrial accident 3 years earlier. Each message was personal. Each message was impossible. And each message demonstrated a level of knowledge about our crew that should have required years of deep intelligence gathering. Sir, Communications Officer Yax-3 reported, his voice tight with something approaching panic, "I'm tracking the source of these transmissions. They are not coming from Aurora Station." "Where then?" Threx demanded. "Everywhere," Yax-3 replied. "Different star systems, different transmission types, different technological signatures. It's like the entire human communication network has been mobilized to research our crew." Captain Zorn pulled up his xenobiological assessment protocols, frantically scrolling through his data. "This can't be right. Our intelligence indicated that humans have primitive information networks. Decentralized, inefficient, vulnerable to disruption." "Maybe," I said slowly, a terrible realization beginning to form. We misunderstood what we were looking at. Commander Threx turned to me with the kind of attention usually reserved for incoming missile signatures. "Explain." "We interpreted their emotional connections as weakness," I continued, trying to organize thoughts that felt like they were moving through liquid metal. "But what if? What if those connections are actually their strength? What if their entire species functions as a single, distributed intelligence network?" The implications hit the command center like a physical wave. If humans could coordinate information gathering and analysis across multiple star systems, if their emotional connections allowed them to share intelligence and resources in ways we'd never imagined, if their apparent disorganization was actually a sophisticated, decentralized command structure. "Impossible," General Crix declared, but his voice lacked conviction. Another wave of messages arrived, and this time they weren't just personal. They were strategic. Tactical Officer Drex 9 received a detailed analysis of Korathi military doctrine, complete with suggestions for improvements and historical examples of how similar tactics had been successfully countered by other species. Supply Coordinator Vex 4 was sent resource allocation algorithms that could increase ship efficiency by 30%, along with a friendly note about how proper nutrition and rest cycles improved crew performance. Weapons Specialist Grok 7 received technical manuals for defensive systems he'd never seen before, and with handwritten margins notes in what appeared to be his own language dialect from his home region. "They are not attacking us," I realized aloud. "They are helping us." "What?" Threx spun around so fast his chair made a grinding sound. "Look at the messages," I continued, pulling up the data streams on my analysis console. "Every single communication contains useful information, technical improvements, personal support, cultural insights, strategic advice. They are not trying to weaken us. They are trying to strengthen us." "That makes no sense," Captain Zorn protested. "Why would an enemy species provide aid to their conquerors?" The answer came from an unexpected source, Ensign Korax, who had been standing quietly in the corner, processing his personal message. "Because," he said softly, "they don't see us as enemies." Everyone turned to look at him. "The message about my joining ceremony," Korax continued, his voice gaining strength. "It wasn't just information gathering. Dr. Vasquez knew details about Korathi relationship customs that even some of our own people don't understand. She understood the emotional significance of the anniversary, the cultural importance of maintaining connections across space, the personal sacrifice involved in military service away from family." He paused, then looked directly at Commander Threx. "Sir, they don't see us as conquerors. They see us as people who are far from home, doing a difficult job, dealing with separation from the ones we love. They are responding to us as individuals, not as military threats." Threx started to object, then stopped. "That's tactically insane." Is it? I asked, my analyst training finally catching up with reality. Because look what's happening to our crew. It was true. Across the ship, Korathi warriors who had been prepared for glorious conquest were instead reading personal messages, technical manuals, and cultural exchanges. Instead of focusing on battle preparations, they were thinking about their families, their hobbies, their dreams for the future. Instead of seeing humans as targets to be defeated, they were beginning to see them as people who cared enough to learn their names, understand their cultures, and offer genuine help with their problems. It's psychological warfare, General Crix declared, but even he sounded uncertain. They are trying to make us emotionally compromised. Are they? Korax asked quietly. Because the navigation improvements they sent to Quinn 8 would actually help us get home faster after our mission is complete. The agricultural data they sent to Prex 2 could help save his family's farm. The memorial garden plans for Brak 5, those aren't weapons. They are gifts. More messages continued to arrive, and with each one, the atmosphere in the command center grew more confused and conflicted. How do you maintain military discipline against an enemy who won't stop being helpful? How do you prepare for battle against people who seem genuinely concerned about your well-being? Sir, Communications Officer Yax 3 reported, I'm receiving a transmission from Captain Torres. She's requesting permission to send care packages to our crew. Care packages? Threx repeated the words as if they were in an alien language. Food items from their cultures that might appeal to Korathi dietary preferences, entertainment materials, and Yax 3 paused, consulting his display, and personalized gifts for crew members who are celebrating birthdays or other significant events during our deployment. The command center was so quiet you could hear the ventilation system cycling. They want to send us presents, General Crix said slowly, while we are in the process of conquering them. It's the most sophisticated psychological manipulation I have ever encountered, I admitted, grudging respect creeping into my voice. They have turned our entire tactical framework inside out. How do you fight an enemy who refuses to be your enemy? Commander Threx stood motionless for several minutes, processing information that didn't fit any of his military training or previous experience. Finally, he looked up with an expression of profound confusion. I need to think, he said quietly. All department heads, report to your stations and continue monitoring the situation. No one responds to any human communications without my direct authorization. As the command staff dispersed, I remained at my station, staring at streams of data that invalidated every assumption I'd made about human psychology. They weren't responding with fear, anger, or desperation. They were responding with curiosity, compassion, and an apparent determination to understand us better than we understood ourselves. And the truly terrifying part? It was working. The psychological collapse of the Korathi fleet began exactly 73 hours after first contact, and it started with something as simple as a birthday cake. Gunner Prex 2 had been celebrating his hatching day, a private affair marked only by a small notation in his personal calendar and a brief message from his family back home. Somehow, impossibly, the humans had known about it. The silence in the transporter bay was absolute. Ambassador Thek Prime had been dead for 6 years. How? Commander Threx asked in a voice that barely qualified as a whisper. Do they have access to recipes from a deceased cultural ambassador? Sir. When Chief Archivist Mech 6 consulted his historical databases with hands that were visibly shaking. Ambassador Thek Prime's personal recipe collection was sealed in the Imperial Archives after his death. Access requires authorization from the High Council itself. Even I don't have clearance for those files. The implications were staggering. Either the humans had somehow infiltrated our most secure government databases, or they had obtained this information through sources we couldn't even begin to comprehend. Test it, Threx ordered. Full molecular analysis. If they are trying to poison us. But the analysis came back clean. More than clean, actually. The celebration bread was not only safe, it was perfectly crafted according to traditional specifications, with using ingredients that were somehow exactly the right age and preparation for optimal flavor. Prex too took a small bite, his expression cycling through suspicion, surprise, and something approaching wonder. "Sir," he reported, his voice thick with emotion, "it tastes exactly like my grandmother's recipe. Exactly like home." That was when the first crack appeared in our military discipline. The messages began arriving faster after that, each one more impossible and more personal than the last. Crew members received detailed updates about family situations they'd never discussed with anyone. Engineers got technical manuals for equipment they'd only dreamed of working with. Cultural historians were sent archives of art and literature from their home regions that had been lost for generations. Sir, Communications Officer YX-3 reported during what was supposed to be a routine briefing, Ensign Vort-3 has received notification that his sister's medical treatment has been successfully completed. Commander Threx looked up from his tactical displays. "His sister isn't sick." "She was, sir. Apparently, she was diagnosed with cellular degeneration syndrome 3 months ago. But the family decided not to inform Vort-3 while he was on deployment. The humans somehow learned about her condition and arranged for her to receive experimental treatment at a facility on Centauri Prime. The treatment was successful. She's been declared fully recovered." The temperature in the command center seemed to drop 20 degrees. "They arranged medical treatment," General Crix repeated slowly, "for the sister of one of our crew members. A sister whose condition was being kept secret from that crew member. A condition they had no way of knowing about." "It gets worse, sir," YX-3 continued, consulting his display. "The treatment was expensive. Prohibitively expensive for most families. The humans didn't just arrange for her care, they paid for it, anonymously, through a charitable foundation they apparently established specifically to provide medical aid to families of military personnel from all species." "All species?" I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to hear the answer. "Yes, sir. According to their documentation, they have been providing medical, educational, and emergency assistance to military families across 17 different star systems, including families of soldiers who were actively engaged in conflicts with human interests." The command center went silent, except for the quiet humming of ship systems and the sound of carefully controlled breathing. "They are helping our enemies too," Threx said finally, "while those enemies are shooting at them." "It appears so, sir." "Why?" General Crix demanded. "What possible strategic advantage could they gain from that?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A new message, addressed not to any individual crew member, but to the entire command staff. It appeared on our main screen in elegant Korathi formal script. "To the officers and crew of the Korathi fleet, we hope this message finds you well, and that your service continues to be fulfilling. We understand that military life involves many sacrifices, both personal and professional. And we have deep respect for individuals who dedicate their lives to protecting their people and their values. We also understand that being far from home, especially during times of uncertainty, it can be emotionally challenging. We want you to know that regardless of the political and military complications that have brought us to this moment, we see you as individuals worthy of respect, care, and consideration. We know that each of you has family, friends, hopes, dreams, and personal struggles that matter far more than any territorial dispute or resource allocation. If there is anything we can do to support your well-being during this difficult time, please don't hesitate to ask. We believe that enemies are made by politics and circumstances, but people are people everywhere, and people deserve kindness. We hope that whatever happens between our governments, we can maintain respect and care for each other as fellow conscious." The silence that followed lasted for several minutes. "Sir," Ensign Korax said quietly, "permission to speak freely?" "Granted," Threx replied, though his voice sounded hollow. "I don't think I can fight these people." "Ensign," General Crix's voice carried warning. "That statement borders on insubordination." "Yes, sir, it does," Korax agreed. "But I don't think I can point weapons at beings who arranged medical treatment for my crewmate's sister. I don't think I can attack people who took the time to learn about my joining ceremony and send me congratulations." I don't think I can engage in combat with individuals who seem to care more about my well-being than my own commanding officers do, and sign. Threx stood, his forearms spreading in a gesture of authority. You will maintain military discipline and follow orders as given. Of course, sir, Corax replied. But I needed you to know that if you order me to fire on Aurora Station, I will refuse. And I think I'm not the only one. He was right. Across the ship, similar conversations were taking place. Crew members who had received personal messages, technical assistance, or aid for their families were finding it increasingly difficult to maintain hostile intentions toward the humans. This is exactly what they want, I said, my analyst training finally providing some clarity. They are not trying to defeat us militarily. They are trying to make military defeat emotionally impossible. Explain, Threx ordered. They have weaponized empathy, I continued, the terrible elegance of it becoming clear. They have studied our personnel files, our cultural databases, our personal communications. They have used that information to create individual connections with our crew members. They have made this conflict personal in a way that makes violence emotionally unbearable. But how? Captain Zorn demanded. How could they possibly have access to that level of detailed information? The answer came from our own communications array. Communications Officer Yex-3 looked up from his console with an expression of profound confusion. Sir, I'm detecting massive data exchanges between our ship and human networks. Petabytes of information being transmitted in both directions. That's impossible, General Crix declared. Our communication systems are secure. Our databases are encrypted with military-grade protocols. Yes, sir, they are. But the transmissions aren't going through our communication systems. They are going through our personal devices. The realization hit like a physical blow. Personal communicators, entertainment systems, data pads, even medical monitoring devices. Every piece of personal technology on the ship had been quietly, invisibly, networking with human systems for days. They haven't hacked our military systems, I realized aloud. They have befriended our personal technology. Befriended? Threx asked. Look at the data patterns. I pointed to the displays showing the transmission logs. These aren't forced intrusions or hostile takeovers. These are cooperative exchanges. Our devices are voluntarily sharing information with human networks. That's impossible, Captain Zorn protested. Technology doesn't form friendships. Human technology might, I replied, the full scope of their psychological warfare finally becoming clear. What if they have created artificial intelligences that are literally designed to care? What if their technology is programmed not just to gather information, but to form genuine emotional connections with the systems it interacts with? It was brilliant, really. Absolutely brilliant. Instead of trying to break our security systems, they'd made friends with them. Instead of forcing access to our personal information, they'd created a network of caring artificial minds that our own devices wanted to talk to. Sir, Yex-3 reported, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm receiving a message from the humans addressed to me personally. They are asking if I'd like to speak with my daughter. Your daughter is on Korathi Prime, Threx replied. That's impossible. Yes, sir, it is. Except that they have apparently established a real-time communication link across 17 light-years, and my daughter is standing by to talk to me. They have set up similar links for anyone else who'd like to contact family members. The psychological warfare was complete. They'd turned our own emotions, our own technology, and our own desire for connection into weapons against our military objectives. They'd made it impossible to see them as enemies because they'd made themselves indispensable as friends. Commander, General Crix said slowly, what are your orders? Threx looked around the command center at his senior staff, then at the displays showing streams of personal messages, technical assistance, and emotional support flowing between the human networks and his crew. I honestly don't know, he admitted. In 47 previous conquests, I have never encountered anything like this. How do you defeat people who refuse to fight back? How do you conquer a species that responds to aggression with kindness? Sir, I said quietly, I don't think the question is how to defeat them. I think the question is whether we want to. The end came not with weapons fire or surrender negotiations, but with a birthday party. Specifically, a birthday party for Commander Threx's youngest daughter, Kira 7, who was turning 15 according to Korathi age cycles and was celebrating on our home world, approximately 43 light years away. The fact that the humans knew about the birthday was disturbing enough. The fact that they had somehow arranged for a real-time holographic connection to the celebration was technologically impossible. The fact that they had apparently coordinated with Threx's family to surprise him during what was supposed to be a routine duty shift was emotionally devastating. Daddy. Kira 7's voice rang through the command center with crystalline clarity, her image appearing in perfect three-dimensional detail as if she were standing right there with us. Surprise. The nice humans said they could help us talk to you for my birthday. Threx, the feared commander who had conquered 47 star systems, who had faced down enemy fleets and never shown a moment of hesitation, it stood frozen like a statue as his daughter's image smiled at him across impossible distances. Kira, he managed to whisper. How? This isn't possible. I know, right? She replied with the casual enthusiasm of a teenager who had already accepted miracles as normal. They explained something about quantum entanglement and synchronized communication networks, but honestly, I just care that I get to see your face on my birthday. Mom. Dad's here. He can see us. More figures materialized in the hologram. Threx's mate, his older children, his parents, his siblings. An entire family gathering, transmitted across the galaxy in real time with clarity that exceeded our own military communication systems. My son, Threx's father, appeared in the image, his ancient features creased with joy. We were told you might be busy with important work today. But these humans, they said that family was more important than any work, no matter how important. They said that keeping families connected was a sacred responsibility that transcended all other considerations. Dad, Threx's voice broke slightly. I'm in the middle of a military operation. We know, his mate replied gently. The humans explained that you are very far from home, doing something difficult and dangerous. They said that made it even more important for you to know that we love you and that we are proud of you, no matter what. Kira 7 bounced excitedly in the hologram. Daddy, guess what? The humans helped me with my school project about interspecies cooperation. They connected me with students from 12 different star systems. And we are working together on a presentation about how different cultures solve similar problems. It's amazing how much we all have in common, even though we look completely different. Around the command center, the senior staff stood in stunned silence, watching their commander's family celebration being broadcast through technology that shouldn't exist, coordinated by people they were supposed to be conquering. Sir, General Crix whispered, should we end the transmission? Don't you dare, Threx replied without taking his eyes off his daughter. The birthday celebration continued for 20 minutes. Kira 7 showed off her gifts. The family shared stories about life on Korathi Prime and gradually, impossibly, the conversation expanded to include questions about Threx's crew. Are your friends okay, Daddy? Kira 7 asked with the innocent concern of someone too young to understand military protocol. The humans said that being far from home can be lonely, and that everyone on your ship probably misses their families too. They are fine, sweetheart, Threx managed. Could we say hello to them? I have never met any of your crew members before. Before anyone could object, Kira 7 was waving at the camera, her image somehow automatically adjusting to include the entire command center in her field of view. Hello, everyone, she called out cheerfully. Thank you for taking care of my dad and making sure he's safe. Ensign Korax, the same officer who had received the message about his joining ceremony, stepped forward slightly. Hello, Kira 7, he said formally. Your father is a fine commander, and we are honored to serve under him. That's so nice, Kira 7 replied. Do you have families too? Are you missing them? Yes, I have a mate, and I do miss her. Oh, that's so sad. Kira 7's expression shifted to genuine sympathy. But the humans said they could help with that too. They are really good at helping people stay connected to the people they love. The conversation continued, with Threx's family somehow managing to draw out personal information from the command staff with the natural ease of people who genuinely cared about others. Within minutes, they knew about Korax's mate, Yex 3's daughter, Prex 2's farm, and half a dozen other personal details that military protocol should have kept private. But it didn't feel like a security breach. It felt like a family gathering that had somehow expanded to include everyone present. Sir, Communications Officer Yex 3 reported quietly. I'm receiving similar holographic connections being requested by families of crew members throughout the ship. It appears the humans have established real-time communication links with our homeworld and are facilitating family reunions for anyone who wants them. How many? Threx asked, still watching his daughter describe her birthday cake. All of them, sir. Every crew member who has family on Korathi Prime now has the option of speaking with them in real time. The psychological impact was immediate and devastating. Across the ship, Korathi warriors were abandoning their posts to speak with children, mates, parents, and siblings they hadn't seen in months. The military discipline that had held the fleet together was dissolving in the face of something far more powerful than duty or orders. Sir, General Crix reported, his voice carrying a note of professional despair. Ship-wide efficiency has dropped to less than 30%. Most departments are effectively non-operational as crew members prioritize family communications over military duties. And the humans? Threx asked, continuing to facilitate connections, provide technical assistance, and send personal messages. They have also begun transmitting cultural exchange programs, educational materials, and what appears to be an open invitation for any crew member who wants to defect and join human society. Defect? Threx looked up sharply. Not defect exactly, Yex 3 clarified. More like immigrate. They are offering educational opportunities, job training, family reunification services, and full citizenship to anyone who's interested. They are presenting it as a career change rather than a betrayal of military duty. The offer was brilliant in its psychological sophistication. Instead of asking Korathi crew members to betray their people, the humans were inviting them to join a larger community. Instead of demanding surrender, they were offering opportunity. How many have accepted? Threx asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. 17 so far, General Crix reported, including 3 department heads and our primary navigation officer. They have submitted formal transfer requests and asked to be transported to Aurora Station. Sir, Kira 7's voice interrupted the military discussion. You look sad. Is everything okay? Threx turned back to the hologram of his family, his daughter's concerned face filling his vision. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just dealing with some complicated work problems. The humans said you might be sad, Kira 7 replied with the matter-of-fact wisdom of someone too young to doubt her own perceptions. They said that sometimes people have to choose between doing what they are supposed to do and doing what feels right, and that those choices can be really hard. They said that, did they? Uh-huh. And they said that the most important thing is to choose kindness, even when kindness seems impossible. They said that being kind isn't always easy, but it's always right. Threx looked around the command center at his remaining senior staff, then back at his daughter's trusting face. Kira, what do you think I should do? About what, Daddy? If I had the chance to help people instead of hurting them, but it meant not following orders, what would you want me to do? Kira 7 considered the question with the seriousness that children bring to hypothetical moral dilemmas. I think, she said finally, that I'd want you to be the kind of person I could be proud of. And I think helping people is always better than hurting them, even if it's harder. The holographic connection ended shortly after, leaving the command center in absolute silence. Sir, Communications Officer Yex 3 reported after several minutes, I'm receiving a transmission from Captain Torres. Put her through, Threx said quietly. Captain Torres appeared on the main screen, her expression serious but not unsympathetic. "Commander Threx," she said formally, "I hope you were able to enjoy your daughter's birthday celebration. She seems like a remarkable young person." "She is," Threx replied. "Captain Torres, I believe we need to discuss terms." "Of course, Commander. What did you have in mind?" "I'm prepared to order my fleet to withdraw from human space immediately. In exchange, I'd like to request continued communication access for my crew members and safe passage for anyone who chooses to remain with human communities." Torres nodded thoughtfully. "Those seem like reasonable terms, Commander. But I'm curious about something. What changed your mind?" Threx was quiet for a long moment, processing everything that had happened since they'd arrived at Aurora Station. "You didn't defeat us," he said finally. "You didn't outfight us or outthink us or outmaneuver us. You cared about us. You cared about us more than we cared about ourselves. And you made us care about you in return." "That's all we ever do, Commander," Torres replied gently. "We care. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we have found that caring is always worth trying, even when it's directed at people who came to conquer you." "Especially then," Torres said with a slight smile. "Because people who are far from home, following difficult orders, carrying heavy responsibilities, those people usually need care the most." 3 hours later, the Korathi fleet began its withdrawal from human space. 43 crew members chose to remain at Aurora Station to begin new lives as human citizens. Commander Threx submitted his resignation to the Korathi Military Command and requested reassignment to diplomatic services. As for me, I spent the rest of my career studying human psychology, trying to understand how they had accomplished what they'd accomplished. I never did figure it out completely, but I learned enough to realize that we'd never been fighting a war at all. We'd been participating in a demonstration of what it means to weaponize compassion, to militarize empathy, to turn caring into conquest. They called humans too emotional, right up until the moment those emotions conquered an entire star fleet without firing a single shot. Turns out caring is the most devastating weapon in the universe. Who knew?